come together and worship you. Just help the words that I say to come through you and to be what you want me to bring. Be with all those who listen and help them to get what they need of us. In Jesus' name, amen. Alright, so I want you to imagine you are worked half to death. Your hands are raw from work. You're exhausted. All you want to do, okay, you ready? Alright. All you want to do is collapse. But you know you can't, because if you do, you'll be beaten. If you take one break, you can be beaten to the point where you may be killed. You're a slave. When you think of slavery, you don't really think of good things. It's something that hurt people for a long time, and it still leaves scars. And you kind of feel like, why would I want a God who bought me like a slave? Kind of makes me want to rebel a little bit, be like, no, I'm not gonna follow you, because I feel like I'm bought. But it's not really that way with God. Harriet Tubman was a slave. For every day for her was not guaranteed, especially because she had a injury from when she was 13 years old. She was with another slave, and they had gotten into trouble, and her owner was really mad. And so her owner threw a weight at the other slave, but the weight hit Harriet in the head instead. And she was really bad. They didn't know if she was going to survive for a long time. They didn't know if she was going to, if she did survive, she was going to make it out okay. Through this time, Harriet's mom nursed her back to health little by little. But even when she was nursed completely back to health, she still had this problem. She would randomly fall asleep just at very inconvenient times. Like when she was working or something, she would just fall over and people would be like, oh, that's her. And anyway, but because this happened, she was thought of as useless. When you're useless, that seems a pretty harsh word. You can't do anything that they think you can't do anything. She was farmed off to different plantations because they thought, well, maybe if I don't tell this person that she has this problem, I can make a few extra bucks or something like that. And she would always get sent back sick, and she would be worse than she was when she left. And her mother would then again bring her back to health. And she kept doing this every time she got sick. One day they got very devastating news. Her owner had died. And you may think why is that devastating? Because, he was mean to her or whatever. But most of the time when a slave owner died, they would divide up his land and sell off his slaves. And families were together at these plantations. And to be ripped apart from your family, being a slave, it's terrible. But there's something about a family that you can almost get through it. But when you're ripped apart from your family, never to see them again, that's a hard thing. No one wants that. And so Harriet was very against this, and she did not want to be ripped apart from her family. But the day that the people who were going to buy her came, she was like, well, I have to do something. So she and her brothers planned to escape. And this was a very sudden decision. It was so sudden that she didn't even have any time to say goodbye to her family or her loved ones. But when she left the cabin that night, goes out and she walks along the cabins and she sings a song. It says, "When that old chariot comes, I'm going to leave you. I'm bound for the promised land. Friends, I'm going to leave you. I'm sorry, friends, to leave you. Farewell, oh farewell. I'll meet you in the morning. Farewell, oh farewell." She had a distinct voice, so when she sang this and she walked across the cabin, or walked across in front of the cabins, they knew she was going. But for that to be the only thing for you to say or to hear from your loved one before they leave was kind of sad. So they start out on their journey, she and her two brothers. And it's not very far into the journey that her brothers get cold feet. They have this overwhelming fear of being caught and what will happen if they get caught. They decide to turn back. But Harriet said, "No, I can't do that." She pushed past that fear of being caught or anything like that, because really she had no life left there. She was going to be sold and she was going to go away, and she wasn't she wasn't a reliable worker, because when you fall asleep, Anyway, so she wasn't a reliable worker, so she really had no other choice. She had to go. She wanted this freedom. So she pushed through the fear of what would happen in the future. And she wanted freedom, so she went. Fear is a hard thing to overcome. Everyone has fear. Everyone has fear. Some in different ranges. There might be a person who's scared of a little spider or something. And then one who's afraid of bungee jumping, which, that's pretty good reason, I think. Anyway, for example, many celebrities have fear. Pamela Anderson is afraid of mirrors. Johnny Depp is afraid of clowns. No, he's not. Orlando Bloom is afraid of pigs. Matthew McConaughey is afraid of revolving doors. And Billy Bob Thornton, I don't know who he is, but he's afraid of antique furniture. And then, of course, Tom Cruise is afraid of going bald. And yes, even Ryan Reynolds is afraid of heights. And then there are some weird fears. There's, sorry if I don't pronounce this right, ethnobophobia, which is the fear of youth. I'm pretty sure if there was one of those people here right now, they would be screaming. Then there's neophobia, which is afraid of new things. Not trying new things, I'm pretty sure that's included, but a brand new iPod, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's shiny!" I was like, yes. But then there's taphophobia, which is the fear of being buried alive, which I experienced at the corn maze under a bunch of corn. Actually, it was a hay maze. Weird. Anyway, and then there's, this one's a really hard one to say, pteronophobia. It's the fear of being tickled by feathers. I don't have that. Feathers are nice and fluffy. Okay, and then there's cyberphobia, the fear of computers, which I'm thinking is some person who's they're gonna take over the world or something, they're robots. And then there's thalassophobia, the fear of sitting. That person would be very tired. And then scolionophobia, which is the fear of school, which, on the bad days I have that. And then there's ophthalmophobia, which is the fear of opening your eyes, which I think it'd be hard to live with your eyes closed, but in some ways people do. I don't know. I feel sorry for that person. Okay. I think fear is the feeling of the lack of control you have over something. Nowadays, we always try to control and try to, know what's coming next. I'm afraid of that lack of control. But we forget that we're not the ones who need to be controlling it. Like the one who bought our lives is. And for some reason, I always try to guess what's going to happen. I worry about it, like what's going to happen next month or what's going to happen in the years to come. Things that you don't really need to worry about. They go over all the things that might go wrong and hoping that I'll be prepared for whatever happens. I have many fears. They include heights, driving at night, moths flying around at night in general, corn randomly being found in food. Well, I guess I maybe just dislike that one. And then Jehovah's Witnesses. Sometimes I just don't want to answer the door. Then there's also, I have a fear of a genetic disease that my father and his biological mom, my father has, and his biological mom died of in her 30s. And then my great-grandma actually died when her phone rang. It's called long QT syndrome, and it's also called sudden death syndrome. The summer before my freshman year, like my dad had, been having some medical problems, and he went over to the Mayo Clinic, and he was, going to see what was wrong. And when he went up to the desk and he was going to go check in, they were like, your records are already in the hospital, you and your 3 children. He had never been to that hospital before, and they said that you had participated in a program. And when I heard this, I thought, oh yeah, when we were little, we had to get our blood drawn, and we had to wear heart monitors for like 3 days. And they kind of hurt. Anyway, but we've done this study many years ago. Like it was when I was little, and it'd been so long ago. Like they had gotten the test results for us, but somehow we got lost in the limbo of things. Like we had never heard back about anything. It just kind of it vanished. And we didn't hear anything for a long time. But since we were young, you have to be older for the disease actually to be detected. When we had taken the studies, my brother, he was old enough. So they came back and they had said, when they looked at the results when my dad went, they said, he didn't have the disease, but my father did. And he was confirmed that he had it. My sister and I were too young when we did the first project, and we had to go get EKGs. After that, I just had this weird feeling. I had a feeling like I had it because I would black out quite a bit. I would get dizzy spells. And, to some extent that's normal. But just randomly, not like if you stand up too quickly or I don't know. But if I was surprised ever or just standing there, I would just black out. I never actually fainted though. But I knew something was wrong, something was off. So when we heard that maybe one of us had it, I talked to my mom. I was like, Mom, I think I might have this. And she's like, well, we don't really know yet, and we let's not worry about this. Because it's only going to make things worse because we don't know anything. A few days later, my dad came back from the hospital, and for some reason, my brother and sister weren't in the house. I don't know where they were, but he sat me down at our kitchen counter, and I don't know why I wasn't somewhere nicer, but he sat me down and he was like, so we got the test results doesn't have that. But then he told me, he's like, but you do. And at that moment, it was like my whole world was turned upside down. I started crying so hard that it was hard to breathe. And I was just so scared. I knew nothing about this. Like, I was more scared of not knowing. And then I learned that my heart in itself, the heart is fine, but the ion channels in my heart, they don't function properly. So it's like the electricity lines in my heart are down. And my heart, the reason that the fainting occurs is because my heart doesn't recharge well. During exercise or big emotions or being scared, my heart could start beating really rapidly and it would go really fast. And the rhythm would just get messed up. And at a point, it would just be so far gone that it just stops. And then, you would faint, but people would just think you faint, but your heart's stopped. This scared me so much. I was angry. I asked my dad my mom and my dad, why did you even have me? And then I felt like I had been shortchanged and betrayed by God. I felt like, am I not good enough to be one of those people who can live normal life or just be able to go through without having problems? I went to my first doctor's appointment. It was actually my freshman year during outdoor school. And we went to Minnesota, and we'd gone to the Mayo Clinic, and during that time they put me on a medication called a beta blocker, and it's supposed to, help my heart, stay in control, and it zapped my energy. It made me so tired, but that's the best option. Last year, actually, my dad went in for a checkup, and his score had gone, we have these things called scores. It's not a good thing, but his had gone very high, which is bad, and it was to the point where he needed to have a defibrillator put into his heart. A defibrillator would just when his heart would beat out of control, it would shock his heart back into rhythm. And he had this done, and I was worrying because a lot of my disease is based on family genetics, and if someone else gets worse, you're most likely going to get worse. And it's worse in women too. And I just had a lot of anxiety about it. In fact, I still do have a lot of anxiety. But I have a doctor's appointment over Christmas break, and I don't know what that'll bring. There's a good chance that sometime in the not so far future that I'll have to get a defibrillator put into my heart. But I can't control that. Whatever I find out when I go there will just be another step in God's plan for me. I've realized that my life is just all part of a plan. God bought me with his blood and his death. Slaves were bought, but we are slaves. We're slaves to sin. God bought us from Satan. We are owned by a terrible man who does everything to make sure we don't succeed, who kicks us when we're down, who just wants to make us discouraged so that we won't do things to help others or to help ourselves. But then we were miserable. We were crying out to God, and God heard our cries. He's the good man, the one who buys us to set us free. The only rule is that we have to trust him. In the long run, he has everything planned out for us. It is for our well-being too. God can see what we cannot, knows what lies ahead in our paths. Harriet Tubman escaped and made it to the north and became free. She went on to free 300 people, including her parents. That's about 4 times as many much depending on how good the slave was. For a human, in my opinion, that's nothing. When I compared it to what God paid for us, He paid the ultimate price. Jesus died for us. His blood covered our debt. He said that He paid that much to have us set free from our sin. So we are bought, but we get to choose whether we want to be bought. We are not forced into freedom, but Harriet Tubman took the chance to get freedom. We are inches away from the borderline. We're in this slavery, but there's a line where there's freedom. And are we going to be too afraid of what might happen? Or are you going to reach out your hand and accept this wonderful gift that God has answered us? He will buy us and He will set us free. Here's a verse from John 16:33. I've told you all this so that trusting me, you will be unshakable and assured, deeply at peace. In this godless world, you will continue to experience difficulties. But take heart, I've conquered the world.
You give us hope when there seems to be no hope. And you've bought us, you've given us new life, and we ask that you help us to seize that life. And sometimes our lives we just don't know where they're going. We're just going to have to trust you on that, Lord. I ask that you would put your hands on Mariah, and if possible, that you would take this cup from her. We also ask that you give her strength to endure. Thank you for your incredible love. Amen.
As you walk out, pick a brownie right there on the left side of our counter. One piece of brownie. Do it fast. Don't be late for class.